Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in the Twin Cities, it's time for Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, this is going to be a good one. Dan Cady is with us. Dan is the president and owner of Cady Business Technology. Dan, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you. Let's talk a little bit about you and how you're serving folks out there. Talk about Cady Business Technology and why you started the company and how you're serving.
Sure. Well, we're in the business telecommunications field, which specifically means we provide telephone services to businesses really that vary between 20 and about 300 users in the Twin Cities area and beyond. We go beyond that also.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the company was started back in 2012. I worked for a firm for a number of years that was started with my family. My family sold the business back in 96, and the organization went through a significant amount of growth, but a lot of changes as far as its focus. And I felt that their focus was going a direction that I just didn't feel was in the best interest of the customer. So that's when I left and started this organization to really focus on the customer.
Let's talk about that segment you mentioned, the 20 to 300 employee segment. I mean, it sounds like that's an ignored part of the market to me based on the comments you just made. Why is it ignored, and what are you doing to bring service to that particular market segment?
Well, it's, from an ignored standpoint, not quite ignored, but certainly not giving them a lot of what they need from a customer support standpoint. They've really commoditized it to a large extent, and there's a lot of organizations that need a lot more support than just a commodity type service. Certainly there's some that they need a really fairly simple service, but a lot of them need a lot more high touch and a lot more expertise. So something we really focus on heavily is the consulting portion of it and providing them that high level of service that larger organizations that are national just aren't able to provide.
Now, Dan, you work with what I see is called optimized phone systems. Let's define what that term means to me as a client and why it's so important to my business. Sure.
So it's interesting, a lot of the telephone systems that are out there offer a lot of features that people never use. And that's to their detriment ultimately, because every single feature was designed to either improve productivity of their organization or to improve the image that they provide to their customers. And that's something that Cady, that we really work to leverage those features and that functionality to really make it easier for their employees to use it and easier for their customers to reach them and, have conversations and share information with them. So that's something that's, like I say, a very big focus of our organization and something we really enjoy.
And I would imagine that's true for existing users as well. I mean, even a current client of yours, unless you're telling me what you do is help them with those upgrades, and I bet that's what you're about to tell me. Sure. But when you own a system a long time and you as a provider continue to make upgrades, sometimes the client doesn't keep up with that.
That's a fact, and it's something we really work on is to work with our existing base as new features and functionalities roll out, to really help them integrate them into their business, to really have an impact from once again, an employee or customer standpoint. And of course, trying to find ways to reduce costs at that same time. There's a lot of changes in the network services area that we work with a lot for internet connectivity and a lot of providers that are out there. And our business is very hyper-local. I mean, what is available on one corner across the street may not be available from a high-speed internet access standpoint. And that's something we really keep our finger on the pulse on to make sure that we're able to provide them the best providers in the best areas, for the best price.
Folks, we're here chatting with Dan Cady. Dan is the president and owner of Cady Business Technology. Okay, I mean, I've got to ask, all phone systems, all phone providers are the same, right? I mean, why can't I just, pull out the old Google and just Google somebody and pick somebody out?
Sure, sure. And it boils down to what you're trying to get done. I mean, if you've got a very simple application and, telecommunications is not a high priority or an important part of your business. Some businesses, if they don't get a call for 2 days, it doesn't matter. But for those, you could certainly do that. But if telecommunications is an important part of your business, it's really critical to pick a provider that's going to be there for you when you need them from a expertise standpoint as well as a service support standpoint. Something we really work to do is to make it really easy for people to reach us. So when you call our office, you'll always get a live body, and 9 times out of 10, it'll actually be a technician answering that phone that has the ability to converse with clients to really help them solve their problems. Most of the time on a first call basis, right during that phone call, because they're able to get in remotely and make those changes or repairs, right from their desktop,
Sure.
when the customer calls in.
Sure. Now, I would imagine that in terms of just your business may be like very similar to someone that's in specifically IT services, where an IT services provider generally makes the argument that everyone's in the data business these days. I would think you might make the argument that everyone's in the communications business, regardless of how many phone calls you think you get or don't get, right? You bet.
And take that a step further. For us, it's always boiled down to focus on one core competency. There's a lot of companies in our industry that offer 3 or 4 different product sets, maybe copiers, maybe IT services, any number of different things. And we felt that it's very difficult to be an expert and the best at any one given area if you're in three different areas. So our focus has always been voice and business voice communications, something we really work hard on. And, like I say, that's all we focus on is voice. So as a result, we really have a very core group of experts that they really live and breathe it and really enjoy it.
So I've got to ask, and one of these days I won't have to ask this question anymore because people will get tired of it. But and maybe people are already tired of it, but I have to ask, particularly in your industry, in your sector, about the pandemic and kind of how you helped companies adjust to a new way of operating.
Sure. It was really an interesting time, needless to say. Everybody went through a lot, and something we really focused on was finding ways for many companies, it was like, how do we deal with this immediately today? Our employees are not coming in today. And even people with very old traditional type telephone systems were able to find really creative solutions to help them with their work at home environment so that employees could still take those critical phone calls, people calling their office phone number in any number of different fashions. So that's something we spent a fair amount of time helping customers, make sure that they stayed on their feet during that pandemic process. And of course, a number of them at that point also chose to find a long-term solution that's more cloud-based to allow them to easily, take those calls really wherever they are via a cell phone, via a iPad, via a computer, really wherever they were. As long as they have a high-speed internet connection and some type of a processor, a computer-type processor, they're able to get those calls.
And is that one of those things that, Dan, because you've got a system that's more flexible, you were able to respond to that challenge faster than maybe clients that weren't, folks that weren't a client of yours? I mean, they're maybe
Sure.
on old systems or what have you.
Sure. And well, the newer systems, of course, it's really table stakes to have that remote working capability, whether they're a cloud-based or an on-premise-based system. Some of those older ones is really where we were able to really exercise some of our expertise to really help them solve that problem in an emergency situation where they were able to get through this without missing a beat. So that seemed to really, it was a fun adventure for our employees, needless to say. And of course, we had to deal with it ourselves. We were essential, so some of us came in, but many of us continued to work from home. Mm-hmm. And we had to deal with it just like everybody else did.
Sure. So one of the things that this conversation brings up is just moving to the cloud, because being on the cloud enables remote working and distributed operations. So talk about the whole idea of moving a telephone system to the cloud, why that's advisable, and how you do that.
Sure. There's a loud drumbeat in our industry right now for the cloud, and I'm sure many have heard it with Zoom and Microsoft Teams and whatnot, which are two providers we work with on a regular basis. And the process of moving to a cloud is a fairly straightforward event. I always like to ask, is that what's best for you? Because some people moving to the cloud is absolutely the right solution. Other people, it may not be. And there's a lot of reasons regarding security, regarding capital expenditures that may or may not make sense to move to the cloud. And we like to chat with each of our prospects and clients to make sure that the path they're going down is one that they really feel is the best for their organization. And of course, we give them all of the pluses and minuses of each, and help them, allow them to really obviously make their own decision and see what fits best for their business. And cloud is big, but it's not 100%. Everybody is not going to the cloud. Some will, some won't. Most will, but all won't, I guess is the best way I can say that.
And is that just because of their fear of the cloud, or are there other reasons why clients would not go?
I would say there's other reasons.
Okay.
A lot of people like to have all of their data and all of their software within their own four walls for security reasons, for control reasons, for cost reasons. It's part of it's the buy versus rent scenario. I can certainly buy software and support it internally if I have the right staff to do it, or obviously you can use us for that, or I might want to rent it, which is more of the cloud situation. And there are hybrids to that also, where I might take part of my solution, perhaps a contact center, and put that in the cloud, but still have my traditional equipment in the office. That's something we're seeing that's really common also. And there are certainly numerous ways to interconnect those two systems to make it transparent from a user standpoint. But there's some financial considerations that go into that, and support reasons that a lot of people choose to do it that way also.
Dan Cady is with us, folks. He's the president and owner of Cady Business Technology. Dan, what is the biggest problem that you see when you go into a new client and you're talking to them about their current situation? What's the biggest problem that you see? Maybe not the one they see, but the one that you see that you can bring substantive change to their organization.
Well, frankly, John, a lot of it has to do with costs, what they're paying today. It's not uncommon for us to go into a customer and take a look at what they're paying for today for all of their communication services. And they're struggling with some of the features and functionality of that current system. It's not uncommon for us to be able to come in and replace that entire solution at the same or at a lower cost. So they essentially get a new telephone system for free, and all of the features and functionalities and benefits that come with it. So that's something that oftentimes customers are quite surprised that we're able to do. And certainly it's not an all the time kind of thing, but it happens quite a bit. And at that same time, we're also often able to increase the internet speed at little or no cost also.
Okay, you've got my attention there. So what and I think some other folks as well that might be listening. How do I know as a business owner that I need to change my phone system, that I need to engage you and talk to you?
Sure. Well, a number of reasons. First of all, it's something that we offer as a standard feature. It's just a no cost, no obligation audit of everything that they're doing today. One of the challenges with all technologies is you don't know what you don't know. You've had the same equipment in there for 5 or 10 years, and there's been a lot of changes, and you hear about all these different changes, but you don't know what it means to you as an organization. So that's something that we really work hard to go in there and really help educate the client to make them aware of the opportunities that are in front of them that they just don't know it's there. And that's something we're really we're able to help them flush that out and see what that means to them. But certainly the work from home and the mobility is a big part of it. But you take a look now, and texting is becoming a big thing. And anybody that's got younger adults living with them, or kids or whatever, they live on the texter. They all like to text, and a lot of times they'll send out texts to telephone numbers, and guess what? They don't know that telephone number could not receive a text because it doesn't tell them. So they'll send out the text, and they think they're done, and they haven't even started. They just don't know it. So that's one example. Another example is contact centers. That's a very big and deep area in our world, and the ability to be able to reach an organization through a number of different ways, maybe texting, maybe email, maybe fax, voice, obviously, any number of different ways. It might be through different platforms such as the Messenger from Facebook and whatnot. There are mechanisms to make it so that it makes it a lot easier to be reached under a number of different platforms that are out there today that a lot of people don't even know exists. And, could really have an impact on the top line of an organization. It's a great way to drive sales, to find new creative ways to reach out to your customers and have them make it as frictionless as possible to reach out to them. So if you're on Facebook and you want to buy something, hey, if I can just click right there and talk to somebody, it's a pretty cool thing. Or send them a text through Facebook. A lot of people like those types of things. Okay,
now Dan, you've got me watering at the mouth. So because what you're saying is you can I can upgrade or at no additional cost or maybe even less, and I can increase sales at the same time, and you're improving my margins, my friend. That's absolutely that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really one of our big objectives. Is we've always got an eye on how can we find a way to reduce costs and increase productivity and really make it easier for customers to reach me, which ultimately will increase my sales. So if we're not saving money or increasing your sales, we probably shouldn't be there.
Dan Cady puts a stake in the ground right there. Here, president and owner of Cady Business Technology. Wow, that's awesome. Let's talk about what's new out there in voice communications technology.
Sure. There's a lot happening. As you mentioned earlier, we've discussed a fair amount as the move to the cloud, and the number of players in that space is a little bit dizzying. We actually work with an organization that's really a clearinghouse for all of the national providers out there in regards to their different product sets. And certainly we have a number of products that we offer directly, but there are certain circumstances and instances where our products aren't the best fit. And we'll be the first to tell you, there's a better provider out there. The good news is that we're able to shepherd that process through and work with that provider and that client. And oftentimes a customer will say, I want to look at 3 or 4 of them. Well, guess what? We can do that. We can bring in all 3 or 4 of those providers and really act as an active consultant and really, once again, shepherd them through that process to help them find the right solution. And in the past, that's something that just was not available. And now it's really available and very accessible. And something that we're like that, it's a fun process for our consultants to go through to really help them find the best solution and the best provider. So I'd say that's probably the biggest change in our industry in the last few years.
Gotcha. Now you mentioned your consultants, and that's a great segue to where I was going next, which is one of the things I noticed about your company looking at your website is there's a lot of conversation, a lot of pointing towards the human aspect of how you do what you do and how important that is to your business. Talk about that.
Well, something we really feel is important is to really have that local high touch. I mean, we have local technicians that have Cady trucks that run around town. We have sales representatives / consultants that really they'll come on site and help you go through these things. When you call our office, you're not going to get an automated attendant. We're available 24/7. You're always going to get a live body when you call us. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a very, I can't say 100%, but I can say close to 100% of the time it's going to be one of our technicians answering your call to help you directly. So it really is that high touch setup that we feel is a differentiator that other companies just aren't able to offer because of who they are and where they're located and whatnot. And it's something we really enjoy. And we've got a lot of people that have been here a long, long time and have been in the industry a long, long time. So they really are pros. And they're a lot of fun to work with, frankly.
So are there particular industries or verticals that are particularly good fits for you, Dan, your company?
Well, there's really 2 different things. First off is size. Our sweet spot generally is between 20 and 300 users. I think I may have mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
But beyond that, we've had a lot of success, and we've been able to help a lot in the banking and credit union space, insurance. We've had a fair amount of success in retail also, multi-site retail locations where they really need to have that flexibility, that the ability to easily reach each other, transfer calls between stores, those types of things. Something we've had a lot of success in that space also.
Gotcha. So I would love it, Dan, and I think our audience would gravitate toward any story you could tell of transformation you've brought to a client that you're particularly proud of. You obviously don't have to mention names, but if you got
Sure.
a story you could share that illustrates how you do what you do, that'd be great.
You bet. Well, the one that comes to mind off the top of my head is an organization that's a 7-site, $100+ million organization that sells recreational products. And they were struggling with they had recently moved to a cloud provider and were struggling. They had issues with call quality, with calls dropping. It was a very difficult situation that they were dealing with, and they fought with it for a long time and finally threw up their hands and said, I don't know what to do anymore. We're stuck. So we were able to go in there and really sit down with them and have through a long, exhaustive process, determine really 3 different things. First off, they had cabling issues. There was a number of low quality cabling connections and whatnot, and that was creating a lot of problems. Secondly, their network was not set up as far as their internet connectivity. Some sites was just too slow, and it was really impacting the call quality. Third was the data network itself, the data switches and the routers were not set up properly and were not working properly, as well as their wireless network. So pretty much everything that touched the telephone system was broken in some way, shape, or form. So we were able to step in with certainly with our solution, with our voice solution, and with some partners regarding the data side of it. And we brought in some higher speed internet connections and whatnot, and really cleaned it up quite nicely to a point where they were thrilled as far as the end result. Their pricing didn't change, was the good news. I mean, what they paid before is really the same that they're paying now, but it cleaned up all of their problems and really made it much, much easier for their customers to reach them. And frankly, this year was a very critical time for them because of the pandemic. It's really driven their sales dramatically in a positive direction. And so they had much more volume than they had in the past. And it was really critical that they could handle that volume in an efficient and effective way. But we succeeded quite well in that arena. So it was fun.
Wow. And life-giving to them, fun to you, life-giving to them. That's a great story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are always fun, was to come in and really help somebody make a big impact.
For sure. Okay, so you've got my attention after this interview. I'm a business owner out there, a good-sized company, and I want to engage with you. Let's talk about how that process works when I get in touch. How does the conversation unfold?
Sure. So a couple of things. First of all, to reach us, the easiest way to reach us is through our main number, of course, which is 763-398-8111. And of course, our website's at cadybt.com. So Cady, B for business, T for technology. So cadybt.com is the easiest way to reach us. Then at that point, once we get that information as far as the need, an individual actually, at your choice, can either meet you via video phone or they can come out and meet you face to face. We really do like to come out and get a feel for the organization, walk through it, see the lay of the land, if you will. And then beyond that, we'd like to get a copy of all of their existing billings that they're paying for that's even remotely related to telecom. So it'd be the phone bills, maintenance contracts, internet connectivity bills, all of those types of things. And of course, either work directly with their data provider or work with one of our partners from a data standpoint to help them in that aspect of it, to make sure that the data network is set up properly. But that's really how the process, that's the initial stages as far as what the process looks like.
And what does the timeline look like, Dan, for, I know every customer is different that you have, but what's the timeline look like for the time we come up with a solution and engage you to when that I'm ready to utilize that system.
Sure. Well, yeah, you're right. It does vary by customer and by size. Pardon me. But a couple things. First, once you go through the process of consulting and figure out what the best solution is, typically lasts anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. And then beyond that, the install varies anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So front to back, worst case scenario, you're looking at 12 weeks. Best case scenario, you're looking at 4 weeks. We've gotten them in much faster than that, obviously, in emergency situations.
Sure.
We've gotten them in literally in 2 days. But generally, perfect case scenario, front to back, you're looking at 3 months.
Wow. Now, there's a whole nother, I don't want to go down too far down a bunny trail, but 2 days, you got to,
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
You mind sharing a little bit of the details of that one? Because
actually, we've had some faster than that, but
really,
somebody calls up and they, it's a fire drill, of course. They call up and they say, hey, something bad happened, or a cable got cut, or our provider's out of business, or whatever, or our system crashed and we can't get it back up. Can you help us? We can literally get somebody up the same day if necessary. That's the wonders of, as long as I have a good high-speed internet connection, we can fire up really rapidly these days because of the whole cloud connectivity. And, there's been some times where, decent-sized organizations say, we need something now. And the good news is with the cloud and with soft phones, it's just a question of, do they have a headset? And, now with the advent of the pandemic and all of the video conferencing, everybody seems to have a headset. So certainly we can get them up pretty fast because it's not even downloading software. It's going to a website and running everything off of a Google browser. So I can get them up pretty fast in those emergency situations.
Wow. Dan Cady from Cady Business Technology. Sounds like the only way he can't help you is if you need it yesterday, and he might be able to do even that. So, wow, this is awesome work, Dan, that you and your colleagues and associates there do at Cady Business Technology. This has been great. I know you've given contact information a little bit before, but let's review it again just to make sure folks have that. Sure.
Main number is 763-398-8111. And certainly whoever answers, probably a technician, can certainly direct you to the appropriate person. Our website is Cady, that's CADY, B for business, T for technology.com. So CadyBT.com.
Terrific. Dan Cady, Cady Business Technology, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, sir. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder that you can find the complete archive of our shows, Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio. You can go to maybe the best URL if you're on your computer is to go to minnesotabusinessradio.com. You can find our complete archive of shows. Of course, you can find the show on your favorite podcast app. So if you're on the run, you can listen there. The search term you want is Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio on your favorite podcast app. So here's my bold request of you. If you would go find the show on your favorite podcast app and subscribe and give us a 5-star review. You're really not giving that review to me or Business RadioX. You're giving it to our great guest. We want folks to find the show and so they can use the services of Dan and others we've had on the show. So if you could help us out in that regard, it helps folks find the show and potentially use their services. So we would be grateful to you if you would support all our guests in that way. So for my guest, Dan Cady, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio.